And we're live.
Whoa! 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 Wow! Ladies and gentlemen, are you witnessing this? Are you watching this?
What's
Oh
up,
my
everybody?
Wow. Oh my goodness, it's the one and only Skip, a.k.a. Simon Broder, my man, my brother, from another mother. Jeez, man. Skip, welcome back.
Glad to be back.
So back to business, since the band is back together.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, do you have a problem? Over. Oh, man.
More like Toronto, do we have a problem? I think, but
Anyway. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in To The Point with
Yep.
and the King. You guys know what to do. If you don't want to see our pretty faces, go down there. Apple, Amazon, Spotify, while you're doing whatever you're doing. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, which is hopefully where you're watching us. And if you are, hook a brother up. Click subscribe if you enjoy it. And click that bell if you want to continue watching our content. We very much appreciate you guys. We very much appreciate the To The Point family. We very much appreciate everybody that comes on this show and shows us our support. We love all of you. And speaking of love, I love you, Skip. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm surviving. Let's put it that way.
You're a survivor. You're not
Hanging
going to give up, Beyonce?
I'm hanging in there.
Okay. Speaking of surviving, Skip, we saw some news the other night. Okay?
Yes.
And apparently, this shook the Raptors nation. It shook the Raptors fan base in general.
It shook me out of retirement, is what it did.
Yeah, you had no choice. That's exactly what it is. But we witnessed that the point guard for the Toronto Raptors, Fred VanVleet, signed with the Houston Rockets on correct me if I'm wrong here, Skip, a 3-year, $130 million deal to go down to Houston to play with some guys.
Dylan Brooks?
Some guys.
Well, he didn't know Dylan Brooks was going there at the time, but
yeah, we didn't know that. But
boatload of lottery picks, yeah.
Yep, he did bet on himself, and he did. He's raking in the bank. All right. Now, Skip. Now that this shook up Raptors nation, what are your thoughts specifically on Fred VanVleet leaving Toronto as the floor general to go command a young team, an extremely young team, out there in Houston?
I think on this one, this is not a travesty, it's not a disaster. It's also not a good thing that he's gone. There's a certain faction of Raptors Twitters out here being, I don't want Fred VanVleet back. I'm glad he's gone. Get rid of the bum. That's not where I'm at. Fred VanVleet's a very good player. He's a very useful player. He does a lot of really good things for you. He impacts the game in a positive way on all sorts of levels. Even last year when he was in a shooting slump. That said, there's no way in the world he's a $43 million player. And the Raptors just were not in a position to match that kind of an offer. Yeah, bio reports, they put $130 million on the table, but it was over 4 years, right? Then that already felt like a pretty big overpay. That felt like, you're a guy, we want to keep you around. This is the best we can do. And I've always said, over the past year, we've been talking about this over and over again. And I've always said, I think the Raptors have to table a competitive offer. I don't think they can walk away from Fred VanVleet, but they have to I don't think they can give up on Fred VanVleet, but they have to have their walk away point. They have to have their point where, like, this contract is too much for us. It doesn't make sense for us with the cap. It doesn't make sense for us with the player that you think you are, with what we're going to have to pay with guys like OG and Pascal Siakam going forward. So, yeah, I think they just reached that point. And that happens in these situations. That happens when you let a guy reach unrestricted free agency. That's going to happen. I think the Raptors were in it right to the end. I think they really thought their offer had a good chance of being accepted. And Houston stepped in and just said, all right, if you're going back to Toronto, we're giving you $130 million. So I think that's kind of just what happened here. And it's going to be unfortunate. The Raptors are going to struggle to replace him. Obviously, we've seen Schroeder signing already, but they're going to struggle to replace his shooting, his leadership. They really don't have a proper starting point guard now with him gone. But I think they just reached their walk-away point, and they just had to be like, look, we're moving forward without him. And they still have Gary Trent, they still have Jakob Poeltl, but that VanVleet gap is going to be a big one to fill over the next couple of years.
So you're basically telling me, I understand where you're coming from on the fact that yes, it is a business that needs to be run, and obviously some things are more costly than others, and when you have someone that's demanding more money, that can be kind of detrimental, and you might have to let them walk. Go on.
I was just gonna say,
brother, I miss you. Go on.
This is what lottery teams do, right? They throw the bag at guys, and it's like, we're bad. We need to get somebody in the door because no one's gonna come sign here out of choice. If you're Houston, if you're like in the lottery every year, no one's gonna be like, oh, I want to go to Houston. So teams like that have to just like throw the bag at people. Literally, here's a max. And the Raptors had to look themselves in the face and say, is VanVleet a max player? I don't think he is. Not at this stage of his career, not with the injury histories he's had, not with the shooting slump that he had last year, right? Remember, I go back to last year, like 3 months ago, we were at the All-Star break. We're on Twitter Spaces having this conversation, like, Fred can't hit the side of the backboard. He's not even worth a first rounder anymore. Dump this guy for a second rounder and some expiring salary. Like, just get this guy out of here. And obviously, he put his season back together, and he was still impacting the game in other ways. Still a great defender. I think he's top 10 in the league in deflections over the last 5 years. And just managing floor. Like he does so many good things for you. But just the Raptors couldn't get to that number, and I can't bemoan them that. It's a bad look, obviously. The optics aren't great. Everyone's saying it was poor asset management, but look, sometimes someone throws the bag at a guy and you just have to walk away. I don't think he left Toronto because he doesn't want to be here. I don't think he abandoned the team or the city. I think someone just threw him a lot of freaking money, and he was like, all right.
Bunch of bricks trucks went.
Yeah, bet on yourself. And you hit the lottery, right? Because
you don't skip. Go on.
Just one last point. One way that this was foreseeable is if you look at the free agent class this year, it was a really weak class. I mean, you're talking about Fred was basically top 3 or 4 in terms of age and the all-star appearance and all of this. The only guys who were kind of in his tier were maybe Middleton, Kyrie, and obviously Kyrie has his own problems. And most of those guys were going to go back to their teams. So someone was going to have to jump at the max, and it turned out that it was Fred. So we're just going to have to live with it.
Skip, you said something there about them throwing the bag at him. And for you ladies and gentlemen out there that are not aware, in the state of Texas in the United States, south of the 52nd parallel, they don't pay tax on what they make, these athletes. That's why it's a very attractive location for them to go to.
Yeah.
So especially with that amount of money, you know how much tax he'd be paying here in the city of Toronto? Jeez.
I know it's a real factor, but I hate that argument. We don't know. I don't know. There's ways the accountants can cook the books and make it not as bad. Well, it is a factor, but you're gonna be where you want to be. And $10 million, man. $10 million extra a year.
Well, Skip, maybe he didn't think I know he didn't abandon the city like you said just now, but maybe there was the factor of the Vision 6'9" and him not really fitting into that. Like, not to discredit Freddie, he's a good player, right? He's still my mom's favorite player, but maybe he did not fit into that vision, and he maybe felt, you know what, my time is almost up. Let me go cash in, ka-ching, right? And I already have a championship. I already got my own brand. You know, he's making residuals. Maybe he was thinking more from, I guess, a business aspect, and realizing that maybe he did not fit in with the Toronto Raptors.
No, I disagree completely. I think he was coming back. If Houston hadn't given him that third year to match Toronto's offer in fewer years, I think he was coming back. I think Houston had their 2-year, $80 million offer on the table. Toronto had their 4-year, $130 million offer on the table. And he told Houston, I'm going back to Toronto if these are the terms. And Houston said, what'll it take for you not to go back to Toronto? And
Yes.
and it became this offer. I
And
don't think
inside,
there's any sense that he wanted to leave the team or didn't feel like he fit into the team. They have a clear need for shooting. They replaced him with Dennis Schroeder, who can't shoot. I mean,
Skip. We're getting to
yeah,
Schroeder, man. Relax.
yeah.
Okay. I know you're rusty. You haven't been on the show in a while. One of my inside sources did tell me a few days prior to this that Freddie will stay with the Raptors. The Raptors are willing to give it to him, right? But just not what Houston gave him. But now with
It's the years that were the factors. But yeah, go ahead.
you gotta give the Raptors front office some credit after, like, almost immediately after the departure of Fred VanVleet. The Raptors did sign Dennis Schroeder. I'm not a fan of him, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, 2 years, 26 million. So 13 million a year to replace Freddie at point guard. Yes, like you just said, he might not have the same impact as Freddie,
Yeah.
but I do see it kind of, and he's a bigger guy, obviously, but I do see it kind of opening up the game for
I'm a bigger guy than Fred. But go on.
Yeah, you are. I'm just a little bit shorter than him. But anyway, it can open up the game for the Raptors. Now, what do you think how would you grade and what do you think of the acquisition of Dennis Schroeder for that contract to join the Toronto Raptors and be the starting point guard?
I don't know if he's going to be the starter. We were debating this on the group chat. He might actually just come off the bench, and they might have to run a starting lineup.
Okay, but what do you think about it?
I think I'm not thrilled with it. On first blush, I think it looks okay. It's kind of just going out and getting a piece who can kind of fill in some of those gaps that you're losing with Fred. I think they could have gone out right after that, or a couple hours after that signing. We saw that Monty Morris went for a second-round pick. And I think Monty Morris does a lot of the same things that Schroeder does. He's a better shooter, not an amazing player by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're just trying to bring in a backup point guard, I think that might have been a better way to go. He makes a little less than $13 million a year. I think he makes like $9 million. That might be the mid-level. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, so I'm not amazed by Schroeder. I think there were probably other options out there. But it's hard to argue with the fact that they felt like they needed to get something to replace some of what Fred does. And Schroeder was kind of just clearly the guy they had lined up that was sort of ready to pivot to plan B really quickly if the Fred thing didn't work out. I did see some comparisons to Aaron Baines, which is not an optimistic, doesn't make me very optimistic. And there are some real issues with Schroeder, right? He's had teammate issues in the past. He's obviously not a great three-point shooter. He has sort of brought himself out of town in various spots at times in the past. So it's hard to be really excited about Schroeder, but I just think they had to do something. They had to fill some of those minutes somehow. And if he can come in and he can just be that support piece, right? That guy who gets 25, 30 minutes a game and just not the Freddie 40 minutes a game, huge points totals, just someone to run the bench unit. I think that will be his ideal role, and I think he can be useful in that role. But I'm not blown away by any stretch of the imagination.
I kind of agree with you. I think it's a lackluster signing and kind of like I gotta do it, right?
Yeah.
From the organization. I'm not a fan of his whatsoever. Not at all. I don't like the baggage that he brings. But I do think he can contribute on the court. I don't think it's like the best decision for the team. But with him coming in, there was something I want to bring up with you, Skip. Freddie, you mentioned earlier in this conversation that Freddie's game did step up after the All-Star break. Now, the reasoning for that was the acquisition of Jakob Poeltl for Jak and Freddie to run the pick and roll, run a two-man game at some points when the Raptors needed a bucket. And it definitely, clearly benefited both of them. Now, what we've seen, and you're a Yak guy, right? You're a Yak antagonist. I know that. Oh, protagonist. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say antagonist.
Yeah, I know you love the guy, but with Yak like stepping up last year and everybody falling in love, and him now currently signing a 4-year, $80 million deal with the Toronto Raptors. Are you excited, and do you think he can still be as effective this coming season as he was last season, doing that 1-2 punch with Freddie now that he's not gone?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a solid piece. He's a solid piece, $20 million a year. I think one thing that's interesting about the fact that they lose Freddie and they bet on Jakob Poeltl, they gave Gary Trent the opt back in with a potential extension, is you're seeing them bet still on kind of the younger side of the roster, just a little bit. So it's not necessarily like a full rebuild type of thing. I don't think they're tearing anything down, but they are kind of aiming at the younger pieces. It's like, okay, we need to keep these guys around for the longer term, and really kind of over the next 3 or 4 years as some of our younger players enter their primes, your Scotty Barnes, maybe your Grady Dix even, then you can kind of still have these guys around, still have these guys kind of in their primes. I think that Yak deal was basically a done deal from the time they made the trade. There was some talk, maybe you go back to the Spurs, maybe this, maybe that, but all along it would have been pretty surprising if he didn't come back. It sounded like he wanted to be back. It sounded like that was kind of almost a handshake deal as part of the trade. So 4 years, 80 million sounds about right. It's a little expensive for what he is, but like everything's expensive in the NBA nowadays. Fred just got 43 million.
What's he gonna provide on the court, man?
Well, exactly what he did last year. Rebounding, defensive interior presence, not a lot of free throw shooting, not a lot of 3-point shooting. We should actually talk about that. The fact that the Raptors are giving up Fred VanVleet, bringing in Dennis Schroeder on a team that already has Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl. So that starting lineup has no outside shooting.
Grady Dick, bro. You got to get that Dick from the outside. He can shoot.
Yeah, well, not gonna touch that one.
Don't what? You're not gonna touch the Dick?
That's what she said.
Oh,
we're children.
No, but in all jokes aside, in all seriousness, right?
Well, Grady Dick is going to have a chance to get touches right from the get-go, right? Because they need that shooting. They need that shooting because they just don't have a lot of shooting on this roster outside of OG. Yeah, I mean, it's about it.
Trent.
OG and Trent, like, and Porter if he comes back as any version of himself. But I'm not banking on that.
Well, see, that's where I wanted to go with this question with you, Skip.
Yeah.
Since we're running out of time, right? Yeah. So now that we've touched on all these bases and we've touched some Dick, let's continue to touch it. And these jokes write themselves. God damn. Okay. But how do you see the Raptors roster currently and for the future? Because like you just said a few things that I've said on prior episodes about now the Raps more leaning to the younger players, and especially now with the current coaching staff who are all developmental coaches, right? You got the Kolokos, you got the Precious Achua, you got the Scotty, you got you got Grady, you got Malachi, quite possibly retaining Banton, right? There are doubt.
Banton, I think Banton's gone. He's a free agent now, so he might come back, but I wouldn't count on it.
But you have some of the young players there alongside playing with Pascal, OG, Boucher, right? You have this great mixture of players. And what are your thoughts? Because I've been asking everybody this. I'm sorry, viewers. I know I've been asking this on every video, the last 4 videos, but what are your thoughts on the Raptors' current roster coming forth this season with what they have?
I would say on paper right now, it's a worse fit than it was last year. And last year it was already an awkward fit. And that's why they were 500 team. Now, That said, I think they do have lots of interesting pieces. If there's a way that this new coach Darko can kind of move the chess pieces around in a little bit of a different way than maybe Nick Nurse did, that might mean starting someone who's not one of your 5 best players. That might mean playing some interesting lineups to kind of diversify what different guys can bring to the table. I think there is a path there for this team to be pretty solid. I don't think they're going to be great. I don't think they're going to be mind blowing. I think 41 and 41 is achievable again. I think maybe a little bit better than that if some of these pieces kind of fit a little better than we're expecting. But yeah, I'm not super optimistic, but I don't think we're going to see a huge tear down rebuild. I think they will cobble some pieces together. But I'd be a little bit concerned. There's a lot of pieces on this roster, but how do they fit together? How can you, I mean, if you're talking about Grady Dick, like, are you gonna bring this guy in first day, he's starting over OG Anunoby? Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But they're going to need to find a way to get this guy some touches because they just need the shooting. And obviously it depends how he performs as a rookie, all this stuff. But there's going to be a lot of interesting questions that are going to be answered throughout the season. I think we're looking at a low 40s win team is what I would say.
That's interesting because the way I see it, I'm a huge proponent of, especially the last 2 years, what I'm saying, the Raps have a lot of young talent that have not been developed, and they should have their opportunity to be developed, and especially by getting some experience on the court, and especially with the departure of Nick Nurse and the arrival of Darko, right there, and the whole coaching staff, right? There might be an opportunity for, let's just say, in the beginning of the season, just hypothetically, in the beginning of the season, where the Raps can put out the younger guys, right? Give the older guys some rest to save them for potentially the playoffs, right? To save their body and their health, right? And give the younger guys a chance to try to flourish, try to mesh, try to build some chemistry. Because with Bobby and Masai, right, they have an idea of what they want when it comes to the players that they have acquired over the last few years, ever since the championship team, right? They have an idea of what they want and the focus and the future of what they want to build. We're not there. We're just a couple guys on YouTube talking shit all day, right?
I'm just gonna say
they're the ones that are getting paid. But hold on, Skip. There might be some sort of method to this madness that other teams in the league are criticizing the Raptors for, and some of them also trying to copy now at this point. Go on.
I'm just going to say the last 2 years, the Raptors were really near the bottom of the league in 3-pointers and in assists, right? And you just lost the guy who was one of your biggest volume 3-point shooters, and regardless of his percentage, one of your biggest volume 3-point shooters and one of your main facilitators, right? And you brought in a guy in Dennis Schroeder, so doesn't pass the ball as well as Fred, doesn't shoot the ball as well as Fred. So that's a problem. They're kind of banking, it seems, that maybe Fred's job can be split between Dennis Schroeder and this Grady Dick, right? But how much do you want to really? Yeah, well, some of Scotty as well, but Scotty's shooting is not up to par either. So how much do you want to really rely on one rookie to be the focal point of your whole season, right? As much as people are happy with this pick, it'd be much easier for a rookie to come in and have to earn his minutes, and rather than being thrust in this role, it's like, we need you to be Duncan Robinson on day one. That's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie in the first day, and maybe he'll flourish. Maybe he'll come right out of the gates stampeding, and we'll find that kind of balance that you're talking about. But I think there are going to be some growing pains, and I think they haven't addressed their two biggest weaknesses in enough of a way, considering what you're losing and what you're bringing in. I see those two things still being a huge weakness for the Raptors next year, unless Otto Porter can get healthy, unless they can find someone else on the scrap heap who can find minutes. But as of right now, I think their problems are still their problems from last year. If we're running it back, we're running it back with some of the same problems we had last year. Some of them are even exacerbated more.
Okay.
But like you said, if Scotty takes a leap, maybe that makes all of that a little bit academic. But as of right now, that would be what I would be concerned about.
Okay, let me hit you with something from my former coach's mind is kicking in right now. Let me hit you with something X's and O's, right?
Yeah.
If you can have guys like OG, Boucher, Scotty, Pascal, Jakob attacking the rim, an opposing coach will change their defense to cover the interior of the court,
Yeah,
right, near the paint, right, which opens up shots for Grady, Gary Trent, Otto Porter, if he even comes back, right? It kind of
you can only play 5 players at once, though,
and it makes it easier because Freddie, like the last year and the year before, when his head got mad inflated, right? He was thinking, "Oh, I just gotta walk up to the logo and shoot," right? Not even looking at anything, not even reading the floor. I think with the Raptors, I think what I expect to see is a lot more ball movement because, like you said, Schroeder can't shoulder all of that load. Grady can't shoulder all of that load. It's going to have to be spread throughout the players and whatever players are on the court. And like you said, it depends on Darko moving the chess pieces around. Now, Skip, if you have anything to say about that, you got one more final thought before we get out of here. Before you go back into retirement and back to your cave.
I think personnel-wise, there's no evidence that there will be more ball movement this year. If there is more ball movement, I think that will be entirely attributable to the new coaching staff and new systems that are put in place. I don't think the players are necessarily suited for that.
Okay, Skip, since you're back for one night only, say something quick to the Point family, our lovely ladies and gentlemen interviewing.
All right, good to be back for the moment. Miss you all. It's been fun. It's kind of like the Rolling Stones getting back together or something, but all right.
All right, Keith Richards.
Maybe we're not that old. Maybe we're not that old.
Well, you're not as old anyway. So thank you, Skip, for coming back, man. We all miss you. A lot of the fans out there have been leaving comments. They miss you as well. So thank you for coming back for a one-nighter and cashing that check that your mouth wrote, okay, for tonight. And on behalf of myself, Skip, at Dougie Jays, you guys go bother him. It's Blue Jay season. You guys know the deal. Find me at King Hussein on Instagram. Hit me up. Hit up to the Point. You guys know I love meeting you guys on the street. I love seeing you guys out there. I love your comments. I really appreciate it. And we can't forget our boy Arturas, okay, who produces these shows. Amazing guy. You guys, you need your production stuff done, reach out to him. So on behalf of myself, Skip, Arturas, you guys out there, the To The Point family, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and Skip.
Peace.